I just pulled the Impala up to Tech Garage, and the brakes feel fine. It doesn't even seem like it has a problem, but it has the ABS light on. That's Anti-Lock Braking Systems. Now, it may be as simple as a wheel speed sensor, it could be a module, solenoids, or it may just be a light problem, not sure, but we'll find out today on Tech Garage. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we got the Impala in the shop, and it has an ABS light on. That's Anti-Lock Braking System. Now, Anti-Lock Braking Systems is one of the best safety enhancements in decades. Brian, ABS is cool. It's even cooler how it works, but it can sure be intimidating.
It's an awesome system when everything's working properly, but the reality is there's a lot of people out there that are very comfortable these days doing basic brake jobs. You enter in those three famous letters ABS, the fear factor goes through the roof. So today, we're going to take that fear factor away.
Yeah, and the key word there was base brake systems. When we're dealing with the base brake system, I got a good analogy for you, Brian. Think about window crank and having power windows all at the same time. That window crank could be the base brakes, which ours are great. It's feeling good. Doesn't even feel like it has a brake problem, yet we have this ABS light on. So then all of a sudden we have these power windows. So my power windows are out, but the base brakes work just fine. So in that case, always, we can go ahead. A lot of modules have codes, so we can go ahead and scan it and get a code. That's hugely important because that'll give us a direction to go in. I mean, it could be wheel speed sensors, wire harnesses, modules, it could be anything.
It really could.
That and a good visual inspection. So I'll pull the codes, you start on the visual inspection.
You know what, just like any project here in the Tech Garage, step one is a good visual inspection. So get yourself a flashlight. I've got the airbox actually removed here so you can see a good look right into this ABS control module. So with the flashlight, I'm looking for any kind of drips. Here's the lines, one line going to every wheel. Here's the in and out to the master cylinder. So I'm looking here, there's nothing obvious, no leaks. I can't feel any brake fluid. Don't forget, brake fluid's slippery. If it's going to leak anywhere, you're going to see evidence of it. And I just don't see any of that evidence. Look down on the transmission housing for any drip marks. There just aren't any. So I don't think we have a leak here. I think our next step is to pull a code. Remember, this is a chassis code, so you got to have the right scan code reader. Hey, John, you got a code?
Yeah, well, I'm starting to pull a code right now. And what I have over here is I have a scan tool, and this is pretty cool because I'm wirelessly connected over to the OBD2 connection in the Malibu, so it's a wireless scan tool. Now, I put it on the screen so you can see and follow along with me, but I'm just going to go ahead and auto ID the car. What it's going to do, it's going to start talking to the computer in the car, and it's going to figure out what it is, and it's found it right there. That's exactly what it is. It's a 2000 Chevy Impala, so I select that one. Pretty simple. Got a bunch of selections here from maintenance test all the way to electronic brake control. That's what we're talking about, okay? We want to look at the ABS and see what's going on. So if I just click that, we go into electronic brake control. It says to me that it's going to be disabled during the test. We don't want to go driving around do this. We want to actually do it right here on the screen. I'm just going to say okay, and then it's going to look at it. Now I have some choices. I can look at data stream, which is a bunch of information about the ABS system. I can do maintenance test. I can do all kinds of stuff, but right now we're just kind of setting a diagnostic basis of what's going on. So let's see if it has any codes in there. That's what we can do. Now it's going to take a couple minutes. It's going to go ahead and talk to the computer, once again wirelessly through the OBD2 connector, and when it does that, it's showing the codes. It actually says 3 of 3. Oh boy, we got some codes in there, and bingo, there they are. Okay, so we're talking about a 0561-71 and a C0550. And I can tell you from experience, we looked at a couple of these at Tech Garage before, and when you're talking about these C0550 codes, they're usually catastrophic damage. That's module, and that's what it says here, electronic control unit performance. Now, Brian can probably access the unit, and we can go through a flow chart, but I'll tell you, just because it's Tech Garage, I'd rather have it at the bench. Go ahead, take it apart, look at it, understand it. I'll pull a flow chart. Brian, you go ahead and just pull the unit. That's the best course of action.
Good call, John. I tell you what, I'm a half a step ahead of him. I was anticipating a problem there. So what I've done before I loosen any bolts here is I've labeled these lines. You don't want to cross anything up. You're going to have big problems later on. You especially want to label the in and out lines from the master cylinder to the master cylinder. I'm going to do that with just an A and B tag, and I'm just going to use a fancy tool. It's called a Sharpie. This is B. We'll call this one A. And I get my Sharpie, and I come down here, and I'm going to mark 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to mark A. This is B right here, this is A right here. This is going to be B, marking it right on the master cylinder, and of course that one has to be A. So that way we've got a point of reference, we can't mess this up. So always use a tubing type wrench when you break these loose, and you want to get these loose, you can then move to an open-ended wrench. Some of these are going to be just finger tight afterwards. And you work with these gently, you don't want to bend any lines or break any lines. I'm just taking my time here. And one more here, and you've got to get the lines going to the wheels off first so that then you can get the master cylinder lines off. So you can move to an open end. I'll tell you what, these feel finger tight. There's a drip pan I've put down underneath the vehicle, anticipating we might have to remove these. You want to capture that brake fluid and dispose of it properly. Just going to work this up. There's one. And we're going to go ahead and get our open end to help us out here. This one's going to be a little more difficult coming off. Just take your time here. There's no reason to hustle. Then there's two mounting bolts on this unit, 10 millimeter. We're just going to get them loose, and we're going to get this off and get it over to the bench so John can show us exactly how it works. So I'm going to get these off. Stay with us on Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. This is an awesome project.
Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com, is being brought to you by Borla, the world's most winning exhaust. Evapo Rust, super safe rust remover. And by rockauto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Well, Brian's got the ABS unit off and it's sitting right here on the table. You know, before we dive into the ABS unit, let's take a look at that code we found. Now that code is a C0550. Now the C stands for chassis, and then our code's right after that. It's pretty simple. It's electronic brake control module, detects a malfunction. Flowchart, bam, replace it. We're done. The brain can't think, it can't function. Now, before we go into replacing it, let's look at a couple of ABS components. It's pretty simple. Why is it? Well, this is the whole unit, and this is all sealed. That's the electronic brake pressure valve. That's what we're going to see in a minute. That thing failed, we're going to have to replace it. Now, what's ABS all about? Well, you got a wheel speed sensor, and a wheel speed sensor does nothing more than spins around, creates these lines of flux, and picks up a magnetic field and produces an AC signal. And when it produces that AC signal, the computer reads it as a speed. And you can see here, the red line indicates high speeds, the green line would be a lower speed. So it's just changing it. The faster it goes, the closer the frequency is, it's going to change the speeds on it. Then what does it do? Well, it goes through some hold, increase, decrease pressure, the module does. Well, now that I thoroughly confused you, let's go down to the table in true Tech Garage fashion and see how this stuff really actually works. And I have an ABS unit right here. It's a cool demonstrator. And I can fire it up, and what's going on? Well, the wheels are spinning. And the computer's simply looking for one to go out of sync with the other ones. Once it does that, that wheel speed sensor picks it up. You saw the frequency change. The computer then, bam, actuates and starts taking control of it. I'll show you how it does it in a minute. But wheel speed sensors come in all shapes and forms. You got one right here that's a built-in bearing sensor. It's all built into it. You have to replace the whole thing. This one right here, this is an actual differential, and you can see it creates a magnetic field and it picks it up as the whole differential spins around. It's going to pick it up right there. And then the last one I have right here, this is actually on a rotor assembly. It's a tooth ring. It goes around and it picks it up there. But this is an integral part of the system. It has to see the wheel speed or it can't function. Now, Brian mentioned it could be a little bit intimidating. Well, I have a couple right here to show you. This is a Delphi 6. Now, this is the one you see on a lot of cars with it all built in. It looks like it's one unit, but it's really non-integral. What does that mean? Well, you can separate the motor pack. And once you separate the motor pack with some transfer tubes going through, you can actually separate the master cylinder assembly. Now, once you separate that, I want to show you what I showed you earlier on the actual screen. Inside an ABS unit, there's some pistons. And through a series of hold, increase, decrease pressure, 15 times per second, I mind you, it's going to run this piston up and down. As it runs that piston up and down, it creates a little void for fluid to go in. It lets that brake get under control, gets it with the other wheels, and everybody's fine. So as it's running up and down, that's how an ABS unit works. Now, our unit, Brian had it off the car, sitting right here. it said it had an actual electronic brain problem. So we had to go to Rock Auto and order us a new brain. They usually stock the unit itself. We got that and some wheel speed sensors because we didn't know what we were up against. But with this, pretty simple repair. It actually comes in this static bag here so you don't get electrocuted, and you don't electrocute it, really. Not that you don't get electrocuted, but you don't want static electricity to hit that. Now, I got 3 screws out of it. I'm going to take the last screw out. There's nothing to it. Once you do that, you can go ahead and separate this. Now, remember earlier on the screen, you saw the whole unit? Bam, there it is. A bunch of pressure transducers and some different electronics inside of there. That's actually going to read and tell us what's going on. This is the brain of the system. Now, before you handle this, you either want to get a static band or just touch the frame of the door. Go ahead and take a discharge off yourself so when you come over here, you don't cause any static electricity. I'm going to pull that out. Really nothing to it. It's just a matter of clicking it on here. Let's get it on there the right way. Click it back on there. You can hear it seat, no problem. Come back. We'll put our bolts on. We'll torque these down to specifications because this is critical once again because we got a pressure transducer reading all the pressures inside of there. So we'll torque that down to specifications. Now all we have to do is get this back over to Brian so he can reinstall it. We'll be on our way with an Impala. We won't have an ABS lighter. No worries.
Well, how's that for a mighty good look inside an ABS control module? That was just awesome. Now, here's a little tip for you. When you remove that system, there's a wiring harness down at the bottom. That wiring harness I covered with a rag and had face down while we were doing the service work. That way, no contamination, no dripping brake fluid could get down into that connector. That's corrosive stuff. So we're ready to reinstall that module, John.
I got it for you, Brian. I performed a little brain surgery and it's smart again.
Awesome, perfect, thanks, man, great work. So to reinstall, we just reverse engineering this whole process. We're gonna make ourselves some room, slide it down in here. There's 2 studs you can see down on the bottom on the mounting plate there, where this unit just rides and sits to get stable. And then there's 1 side mounting bolt. So we're going to take our time, get a good install there, sit them right down on. There we go. All right, and you can kind of feel a friction fit in there. I'm just going to get this in from the side to hold it in place. And then, same thing. The 2 master lines go into the master cylinder first. A and B, we've got them well marked. That was worth our time and trouble. A first, and we'll get these back down to snug with our tubing wrench, and then if there's a torque spec, you need to follow that and honor that. And if what you're thinking is a pretty substantial bleeding process here, you're absolutely right. It'll be a standard traditional bleeding process, but we've got a lot of hydraulic fluid and a lot of air to get out of these lines now that we've had the whole system opened up. So follow a typical bleeding procedure, starting with the furthest wheel first. Okay, we're good. I'm going to button these back up, make sure we're tight everywhere on the mount, and we're going to be ready to bleed this system. So stay with us on Tech Garage, brought to you by rockauto.com.
Welcome back to Tech Garage presented by rockauto.com. Well, Project M&M, the Mercury makeover, is back in the shop along with Tom from rockauto.com. Now, Tom, it only makes sense to turn our attention to maintenance items. You know, we did the check engine light. They were inexpensive fixes. We put the coils on, the evap system. We know we're ready to maintain this thing. Where do you think we should start?
An oil change. That's every car needs that periodically. It's been a while on this car.
It sure has been. And how are you going to do it?
Start with the drain plug. Here we go.
All right, so we'll pull the drain plug out. Now, oil change, it's a good idea to get the car warmed up to temperature. Go ahead and pull the drain plug out. I'll start working on the filters right up here. You get a filter wrench in here and crack the filter. Once I get the filter cracked and you get that oil draining, we'll get it out of there. Ooh, look at that. That's nice and black, huh?
Yeah, I think it's been in there a while.
Cool. And here comes the oil filter. Very good. Now, you got a little tip when it comes to that drain plug, don't you?
Yeah, these don't necessarily last forever. You can see there's a gasket built into the drain plug. So it's a good idea to change that every once in a while. Even if you take it to a quick lube, you might want to take one of those along and say, hey, put this on my car. Otherwise, you'll keep tightening it tighter every time to prevent drips, and you'll eventually strip out the oil pan, and that's a more costly repair.
Costly repair and a big maintenance one as well. All right, well, I'll clean that off to you and hand it to you. Now I got the oil filter down, and the oil filter's job is actually to take all the debris out of the engine, sand and everything else. I mean, sand is sand. It's going to get into the cylinders. You can see a cutaway right here. All right, you can see here the filter media inside of here where it's actually going to come through, and that's going to actually filter all the oil. That's an important part of the oil change, Tom. I want to make sure I get all the debris out and not just drain the oil itself.
Absolutely. This drain apparatus came from rockauto.com too. People may not know we have tools like this. And
yeah, I'll tell you what, I mean, at Tech Garage, we ordered that. We ordered a bunch of specialty tools. And this is neat because, you know, I'm thinking I'm going to get parts there. Yeah, we got the filter. Yeah, we got the oil. We got all the other stuff there that we're going to put on the car. But pan you wouldn't think about. I'm going to get this filter started, and you get the drain plug started. We'll get everything put back on this vehicle. Once we do that, you know what we need to do next?
head up top?
Head up top. Yep, we're going to head up top and start putting the service items that need to be under the hood. Hey, Tom, look what I found. Actual oil sticker that come off the window in there. It's showing 10/6/14, but 54,000 miles. Man, we only got 55,000 miles, but you know what? We're 4 years overdue. Oil don't last forever.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't a waste of time changing the oil.
That's for sure. And we're also going to address some maintenance items. We're going to talk about the PCV valve. We're going to do the air filter while we're up here, and wipers are always a good choice. I mean, safety is a huge issue, especially with a car that hasn't been serviced in 10 years.
Yep, sitting outside, yeah.
Tell us about the PCV valve.
Well, the PCV system sucks the air out of the crankcase and burns it up, so you don't have, it reduces the pressure buildup in the crankcase, and it prevents fumes from getting out in the air. The PCV valves have varied quite a bit in newer cars, how they look. It's no longer just that little L-shaped piece of plastic. This has an electrical connector on it. A good place to look is at rockauto.com in the catalog to find out what your particular PCV valve looks like so you can track it down. So we'll just plug in the new one.
It's that easy. Now we'll turn our attention actually to the air filter. The air filter is an important part. We're filtering all the air. There's a ton of air going into the engine for every gallon of gasoline, and that's pretty easy. It's right here. I'm just going to pop off the air cleaner here, pull the cover off, and I'll snake it out of there without having to remove the whole air duct system. And you can see the air filter right here. Now, it looks not too bad, Tom. It's not in bad shape. I mean, still should go ahead and place it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely something that wouldn't hurt, and it's worth the cost. So.
And even though it doesn't look bad, check this out. This is pretty cool. I'm going to run this light through it, and you can barely see it over here on the dirty side. I mean, it's coming through, but it's even not in bad shape. It doesn't look too bad, but check out the new one right here. If I run it through the new one, I mean, you can see that light shining through there real bright. You know there's no debris in there. Going to go ahead and replace that, stick that in there, make sure we're getting some clean, fresh air into the system. How's it coming over there with the PCV valve?
So we're getting a little balky, but I'll get it here.
Yep, getting your hands dirty. That's pretty cool.
Oh, here we go.
Project M&M's coming along. It's looking good. Get the air filter in. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the wiper blades on. That's always a good idea. I mean, just deterioration alone. I don't know when they've been changed, but I can tell they're flat and sitting on there. Just pick the bottom of it. Tom, some of these wiper blades, man, you got to be a rocket scientist to get these jokers off. I mean, they are not easy. You going to go ahead and fill it up with oil?
Yep.
Awesome. I'll get this one on. Let's see, pop this little tab up here on the top. Once I pop the little tab up, I can just walk it in there, clip it on, lock it back down. It's just that easy. Now, Tom, we talked about a lot of these components and a lot of these components' views. I mean, that PCV valves, it really, I don't know what it is if I'm just dealing with a do-it-yourselfer. So what we can do is we can walk over to the computer, we can check that out along with that oil drain plug that's used to replace that filter, so that actual gasket on it. So let's head over and check it out.
Right, okay.
Let me paint a scenario for you. We did our oil change on our M&M, but have you ever reached down to an oil plug and you started to take it out and you just knew there was too much force going on here, man? Somebody ripped that thing in there, cross-threaded it or whatever. It's dripping, it's leaking. Major job. Can you fix this there?
Yeah, absolutely. The oil drain plug is something you can change every, fifth oil change or something. It's not meant to be permanent in a lot of these vehicles. I'll show you on our Mercury. The oil drain plug has a gasket that comes with the oil drain plug.
Right.
You can see that here. This gasket every time you compress it, it won't compress as far the next time. So
It's only going to last so long, and what an awesome illustration.
yeah, even if you take it to a quick lube sort of shop, you can give them a drain plug and say, hey, please replace this rather than keep over tightening.
Can I get just the O-ring?
Yeah, you can just get gaskets for vehicles that don't have any gasket at all. These are great for, or this one just replace the O-ring.
Yeah, I mean, I want to
Very
get
inexpensive.
a whole set of them and just keep them on hand when I do an oil change so we don't have any oil leaks.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, much cheaper to do this than replace an oil pan.
Yeah, well, we put it on ours, and ours is not leaking, so it's a good idea. I'll tell you what, you don't have time to do an oil change, but you can get a quick snack, because we'll be right back with more Tech Garage right after this commercial.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is being brought to you by Z-Max, the one product for your engine, transmission, and fuel system. AP Laser, leading the way. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, the video question of the week's a good one. Check it out.
Hey John and Brian, this is the third time I've bled this brake system. Every time I do, the pedal feels good for a while, but then it just gets spongy again. Any ideas, John and Brian?
Dustin, first of all, congratulations on these multiple brake bleeding projects. You're clearly not afraid to get under the vehicle and do some work. Here's a couple things you can check. You got to check the thickness of all your rotors. Make sure they at least meet the minimum thickness. You need that so you get the right coefficient of friction so it performs properly. We showed you glazed brake pads. You want to pull them and check them. Make sure you've got enough meat in those meet spec as well, or go ahead and replace them. You need that equation to be right. And if you need some help on a rebleed, don't forget MightyVac makes a great tool. If you're doing this by yourself, it makes it much easier. But I think he might have a greater issue in play here as it relates to heat dissipation.
It is, that coefficient of friction, big word, real simple. Got a piece of sandpaper here, very hard to push across the cable. High coefficient of friction versus the ice cube. You want high coefficient of friction. You want to make everything in good shape so you're not transferring heat. Now, heat transfers over to our brake fluid. You got .3, 4, 5, even have 5.1. They all have higher boiling points, but 5 is silicone-based. Don't use that as well. Now, the coolest thing you can do is go down and get some of these strips right here. I got one right here and some old brake fluid. If I dip it in there, almost instantaneously, yeah, that thing's up there. I mean, there's a huge copper content. Sounds kind of weird, but those lines have copper, starts deteriorating. Check that out.
That means the brake fluid is going to boil much faster, so you got to replace the fluid in that case.
Yep, the Malibu's in good shape. You know what? I'm going to load up my wife and kids, head down to Orlando for a week, but we'll be back. So you stick around. Next week, we'll be back with another Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Production assistance for Tech Garage is provided by Chipola College, located in Marianna, Florida. Founded in 1947, Chipola was recently ranked as one of the top 3 community colleges in the United States.